Hi friends, today we will learn one of the main topic in Azure Logic-App, how to secure your Logic-App endpoint. In Logic-App, all the inbound requests that we receive through request-based trigger, those are coming in encrypted and those are secured with TLS, that stands Transport Layer Security. As of today, TLS 1.2 is the minimum required, and Logic App enforce this version when receiving an inbound call to the request trigger or action. If you get TLS handshake error, make sure that you use TLS 1.2. In TLS 1.2, all the inbound calls support multiple cipher suites. This is the list of cipher suites that supports. I'll make a different video to explain these cipher suites in detail. Every request endpoint on Logic App has a shared access signature in the endpoint URL. The short form of shared access signature we called SAS. So the endpoint of Logic App, it will follow the format request endpoint URL. Then we'll have SP. This will let us know which HTTP method are allowed. Then we'll have SV. This will let us know which SAS version is used for generating the signature. Then we have SIG. This will let us know which signature to use for authenticating access to the trigger. All the inbound calls that come to request endpoint can use only one authorization schema. Either they can use SAS or they can use Azure AD authentication. I'll make a different video for Azure AD authentication. Even if we use one schema, that doesn't disable the another schema, and if we use both the schema at the same time, this can cause the error because they will not understand which schema to choose. So there are multiple ways to secure our Logic App endpoint. So we can restrict the unwanted or unauthorized request. We have SAS key, that is shared access signature key. We have IP restrictions. We can use Azure APIM, that is API management. We can use Azure AD authentication, that is Active Directory Open Authentication. So let's see how we can restrict, how we can secure our Logic App endpoint using SAS key. So I am here on Azure portal and let me go to my resource. So in my resource group, I have created two Logic Apps. So I am opening my Logic App, Demo Logic App 2. I'll click on edit and let me grab the endpoint that I have it. Suppose this is my endpoint. Okay, so if you can see, this is my endpoint in Logic App. I'll copy this one. Let's open this Logic App endpoint and we'll see what are the information we have in this endpoint. I'm using Postman tool. I'll choose post method. Okay, so if you can see, this is the endpoint, and in this endpoint my request endpoint URI is this one. This one is my request endpoint URL. Then starting from SP, this is the information that is let us know which HTTP methods are allowed. And then I have the third part, or which give us the SIS version that we use. And then I have the last part. This is giving the information about which signature to use for authenticating access to the trigger. With all of this is completing entire endpoint URL. So let me copy this one from here and we will generate a new SAS key. Okay, then we will compare it. Let me divide this information. So this is the request one, then I'll have my method allowed, then this is the version information, and this is the trigger authentication information. Alright, so this is the existing endpoint URL. So suppose this endpoint URL is somehow exposed to the entire world, and if they want to send the junk data, they can just create a console application and they can start pushing the data to this logic app. Okay, now if I want to restrict that, I want only the authorized person can trigger that message. How I can do that? Using SAS key we can do that. So now we'll go to the Azure portal. Let's close this one. Okay, so we will open this logic app endpoint and we will go to access key. If you can see here, we will have this access key. Once you click on this access key, it will give this window, and here if you can see, regenerating the access key will invalidate this logic app SAS URL created using the selected access key. So whatever logic app you have created, those will be invalidated. Now I am going to regenerate the access key. It is giving me a message, warning, regenerating the access key will invalidate all SAS URL created using the selected across key and will require calling application to acquire the new SAS URLs. I'll press OK. Successfully generated my access key. So my new access key has been generated. I'll go back to my logic app again. I'll click on edit. I'll go here and now I'll copy my endpoint URL again. Alright, and now I'm going here. Now I'll go to and I'll compare it with my old logic app endpoint URL. Okay, so let's first divide it. Alright, so now can you see the difference between both the endpoint? The previous one, the ever one, is the old endpoint URL that I have it, and the new one, this is the new endpoint URL that I copied after generating the SAS key. Okay, so let's try to trigger some message. Okay, and we'll see what happened. So this was my old endpoint URL. I'll push one normal message. I already have one input created. Let's use that. Okay, and this endpoint is my old endpoint. So let me try to send some message, and if you can see the error, it is saying 401 unauthorized. This authentication credential are not valid. Just copy it from here. I'll paste, and now I'm passing the same request. Click on send. Perfect. You can see here we received the 200 OK response and it was successfully processed. Go to the Azure Logic app and we'll verify if we have received any request or not. Let's refresh it. Yep, you can see here we have received this request. We will open that. Okay, so we have received this. All these steps were triggered successfully. Alright, so in this way we can secure our logic app endpoint. Suppose if your endpoint was exposed and if you want to regenerate the SAS key, you can do in this way. But this is not a recommended way, because if your previous endpoint was exposed, it might be possible your new endpoint can be exposed using the same method. So better to use the different ways. So in the next video I'll explain you the different way to restrict the logic app endpoint URL. Thank you for watching this video. Have a great day.